host. It looks like PainUser is leading the series 1-0. Let's see if White can pull it off on this second map that will be Xel'Naga Caverns. In the top right, we have White Ra spawning as the blue Protoss. In the bottom left, we have PainUser from Lazarus Gaming spawning as the yellow Terran. Now, to note, PainUser did a great job demonstrating why those Thors are so strong. They absorb tons of damage from those Zealots, allowing the Marines and the Marauders not to have to do any sort of kiting and cute running and maybe hoping to do damage while avoiding force fields. They just sat behind the beastly Thors and unleashed. However, it was that one key EMP on those Templars that really gave PainUser the win. White Ra's going to have to play a little bit more carefully with his unit placement if he wants to be able to win this game. Now, Xel'Naga Caverns is the most commonly chosen map in tournaments where the loser does choose the next map because of the fact that it's a standard map where all the expansions are easily takeable. There's nothing blocking them except for this gold expansion has a rock on it. So players do love the distance. They love that it's two players so they can scout their opponent easily, and it has that cool circular middle with the entire hole cut out of the center. So there's very interesting swing around action in that center cavern. In the meantime, White Ra is going for a 12 gateway, stopping pro production for just a smidge to get that gateway a hair earlier. We do see PainUser throwing down his 12 barracks, making another SCV, getting another gas geyser down, and sending out his 13th SCV to find out exactly what White Ra is up to. Likely not going to see too much deviation at this stage of the game, as White Ra is just investing in that assimilator at the usual times, throwing down a pylon. I do love it when a player ends up throwing down a second pylon in a useful location. Very easy to just sort of go into autopilot and plop two down next to one another. But this always creates a little seed of doubt if your opponent doesn't find it. He knows a second pylon should be down, but he just can't quite seem to locate it in your base. A lot of times players will at least fear for the worst, and sometimes the bad players will plan for the worst, not see a second pylon, build a bunch of bunkers, and as it turns out, oh, it's just down there. Looks like the second gas going down for White Ra. PainUser very smartly scouts to see if there's some sort of second pylon. Upon spotting that, PainUser now knows that nothing is out of the ordinary. Two Marines en route. Now, PainUser in the last game got a tech lab very, very quickly, as well as a fast second racks. With this opening, it looks a lot more like a factory is going to get plopped down in the near future. We do see that the orbital command is finishing. There is, well, is he going for a factory? Yep. It's a factory going down, but it's kind of late. It's about 15 seconds behind. He could have built it a little bit earlier, but either way, it is going down now. Another great little move by PainUser, blocking off these back doors in case any units do end up popping in. We have that scout worker from PainUser making its way back into the main again. It wants to see if there's any zealot. It sees that there's no zealots. It sees that there's no tech structures. It really wants to know what's going on. White Ra will likely not do anything until this one stalker is out. He wants to shut down any sort of search in his main. We see, a sentry coming up instead of a zealot, and a robotics facility going down by everyone's favorite duck load. One gateway, one robotics facility, a very cool opening. Getting a lot of immortals and a lot of sentries. In the production tab, we see a bunker going down for PainUser, as it appears he's going for, this is interesting, he's going for the no tech unit mix. There finally is the tech lab going down, but until then, it was just Marines and Hellions getting produced. This is a very odd opening. Definitely want to see how he ends up playing this off. Is that actually another barrack that's going to be thrown down? No, a starport. Okay, it's ending up converging to something a little bit more typical. And there's the one probe getting picked off by the Hellion. There's the Stalker from White Ra making its way through the center of the map. Will it end up picking off the Hellion? The Hellion does manage to sneak by. So this one lone sentry could potentially throw down a big force field. No immortals coming up. Wow, White Ra instead just going for the ultra safe, ultra safe 2 racks, 1 robo. Just throwing down a celebratory potpourri of force fields once he ends up killing off that Hellion. But that's okay. White Ra is doing the safest opening in the book. 2 gateway with a fast observer. You end up finding out exactly what your opponent is doing, and you just respond accordingly. So it looks like PainUser's going for a very, very gentle Marine Marauder plus Starport mix. A lot of players like to do this to get a fast Raven, to do some fast pushing, but we see no infantry upgrades coming out. Ordinarily, you'd be getting at least Stim. at this point in the game, but we do see the command center coming out for PainUser. There's the Nexus going down for White Ra. We do see just sentries and those stalkers getting produced, 2 zealots as well. Also, we see the Robo Bay. White Ra, again, one of the few players who's very, very good at getting fast robotics bays, but still I'm always a little leery of it, especially if your opponent does a play like this where they do get a fast Raven and they get out a decent number of Marauders. They can rush up and pick off the Colossus, or they can just manipulate your positioning by getting a Banshee after the Raven. With that Robo Bay down right now, though, we do see that White Ra is having some great timing. Well, if he built a Colossus, I would have called that great timing, but until then, he's just doing the usual 2 Gateway, 1 Robo. Should be getting the range upgrade fairly shortly. Getting the gas geysers very, very quickly. Essential for getting those sentries to reinforce the Colossus. PainUser doing his usual little move out with small numbers of forces. Clearly not going to be using that factory anytime soon. There's the Banshee coming up right after the Raven. Can do a lot of big threats. 4 barracks coming down right now for PainUser as he is building a bunker, moving out. Oh, this is the best part about fast Raven openings. You can pick off those observers so easily. Now, PainUser is watching very carefully. He's going to see this observer. If he's watching anywhere close to his expansion, there we go. And then White Ra will end up losing the observer, so White Ra is back in the dark again, making this Colossus play a little bit riskier. We do see the expansion is done. White Ra has a 3rd gas geyser going, making lots and lots of probes, but still no extended thermal lance upgrade. Going to be devoting most of his chrono boost to this Colossus. It does look like we see the orbital command is finished for PainUser, playing very cautiously as always, not risking moving that orbital command out too early. Instead, waiting for it to finish to become the orbital command. And this Banshee could do a little bit of damage if it does swing around to the backside and pick off some of the probes here. With White Ra only having 2 gateways worth of anti-air units, he will be spread quite thin. In the meantime, PainUser has these barracks finished now, getting medevacs. His Expo Command Center has landed. He's making another engineering bay. Well, actually, the first engineering bay of this game, but in a nice little wall-off fashion. There's the observer from White Ra trying to do a little bit of spotting. But uh-oh, it looks like there's no anti-air in sight. There are 2 gateways available to do some warping in action. So it does look like PainUser will be darting in, seeing these 2 stalkers, and having to back off. But still, this is exactly what you want. If your player only has 2 warp gates out, you want as many of those 2 warp gate units at the back of his base. Because honestly, this ain't many. This will allow this Marine Marauder Raven Force to do quite a bit of damage. Factory now pulling back into the main area. There's Twilight Council finishing right now, and how will he be spending this sort of tech pattern? I don't know if he actually has the resources to be able to pull this off, but it looks like PainUser just scouting out absolutely everything. The Colossi trying to hide in the corner so he can't get a good count of what's up. It looks like that factory will finally end up falling, but still, perhaps he's going for some sort of zealot with leg speed upgrade at the Twilight Council. That could be a nice little dirty mix of units coming up. There is another starport going down for PainUser. Interesting decision, perhaps favoring getting those Banshees up. Looks like the orbital command is not yet having a second gas edit. Now is having a second gas edit. There's the observer from White Ra, just spotting to see if there's a 3rd expansion. Could end up spotting here to see if there's a gold. Both players just holding their Zelnaga watchtowers. White Ra continuing to mass up many of those Colossi. There's the Zealot with leg speed. There's the +1 attack upgrade. That's really going to help the Colossi do significant more damage. And also it looks like he was getting that forge to just do a defensive cannon, something that we don't see enough in this matchup. Does look like, PainUser beginning to move out. Really would love to pick off those observers, but knows that now is the time to push. He's advancing forward. He's going to pick off this 1 probe. Now White Ra is trying to get into a good position. He's going to begin chrono boosting on these structures to try to get that Colossus out as fast as possible. He's warping in more units. It looks like PainUser is trying to get in position. The Raven does have 200 of energy, and it looks like he's advancing forward now. Picks off a probe, trying to get in a good spot, but the Colossi just have too much range. He will end up retreating. Force field getting thrown down. White Ra playing completely differently from the way he played in the last game. There's the Zelnaga watchtower being established. We do see that the command center is going up for PainUser. +1 attack going down. just Marines, Marauders, and now Vikings getting produced. He was using that second starport just to get a little bit of extra anti-air in there, but he doesn't have a reactor, so he cannot produce the Vikings at quick enough of a rate. PainUser looks like he's going to be pulling back to pick off these destructible rocks. White Ra also picking off his own destructible rocks and setting up his third base. +1 attack is almost finished, and 5 gateways worth of Zealots now reinforcing. A few Stalkers getting produced as well, but with that charge upgrade, those Zealots are going to wrap around the infantry so quickly. Zealots with leg speed, an excellent replacement to using a lot of sentries with force field. Does the same thing. It pushes all the infantry back so the Colossi can do damage from very far away. We don't see any blink coming up. It looks like just Stalkers and basic gateway units. Really curious to see if PainUser is going to be doing any of his Thor business coming up. It looks like he is just continuing to rebuild the barracks. That Scout Factory did a lot of good, but knowing PainUser's style, he loves those Thors so much, I don't know if it was too much of a deficit to it. And it looks like, uh-oh, here's the big push coming up. There, the 2-point defense drones getting thrown down. He's trying to do as much damage to those Colossi as possible, but there, all the point defense drones are out of energy. 2 Colossi fall pretty quickly. The Zealots with light speed are finally dead, but oh my goodness, the whole army of PainUser is gone. PainUser not even trying to kite those Colossi with his Vikings, just pulling back in total defensive position. Will he be able to pick out one of those back Colossi? Yes, he manages to get one, but he's doing everything he can to repair this single lone bunker. 2 Vikings remain. He's trying to use this other little pit to micro around, and it is at 12 hit points, and it stays alive. Oh, the expansion command center from PainUser falls almost immediately. White Ra now advancing forward, doing absurd amounts of damage. This one bunker is the only thing keeping him alive, and then it finally falls. A few more Stim Marauders bounce down to the low ground, but White Ra reinforcing, even sending probes to the expansion. And that is going to be all she wrote. PainUser's expansion under fire. The food differential 35 to 110. White Ra with absolutely marvelous, marvelous pushing play. And there's the good game. White Ra ties up the series 1-1. Again, another deciding game going to be coming up right now. I do think that PainUser perhaps didn't choose the best angles, could have spread out a little bit more, perhaps wasn't macroing nearly as well, but, you know, really it's hard to find holes in White Ra's play given the way that he was playing. The Banshees just didn't really seem to do much of anything. The point defense drones did a little bit, but there just wasn't enough units for Pain.